Hey everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the Diamond Discussion. I am your host, Demetrius Woods, and today we're going to jump into that Little League World Series that ended this past weekend. I'm going to give you some tips on how to be a better hitter, and we'll also kick off Season 5 with our open book segment. So without further ado, let's get it started. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Diamond Discussion. Season 5 is here, guys. I hope you've had a wonderful week thus far. I am jumping right into the show immediately with these 3 keys to becoming a greater hitter. I know that a lot of you guys, I've gotten some DMs, I've gotten some text messages, even a few phone calls from you all about making sure that since school ball is alive and well here in Georgia, we have this topic on the show. So I'm not going to hold you guys up further, okay? However, I did get these specific 3 keys, although I've talked about them probably in the past. I heard a segment from the great Barry Bonds. Now, I know some of you baseball fans out there may boo him a little bit with the steroid era and all that jazz, but here's the reality, okay? Dude was an amazing hitter, regardless of how strong or how weak he may have been. And so, because of that, I think that these 3 keys made him the hitter that he was, and they ultimately can make you a better hitter if you're not already implementing it, okay? So, the first thing that he talked about, all right, was being able to keep your hands high through the zone. And when I hear that, all right, when I think about keeping our hands high through the zone, I'm thinking, all right, listen, that doesn't necessarily talk about our barrel, right? That's only about the hands. And when I talk to my players about having their hands high, I'm typically saying, hey, let's keep the hands around the letters, okay? Keep them through the letters, and that way you can get to that high strike, but you can also manipulate the barrel to get down to that lower pitch as well, right? However, or well, rather on the contrary, if we have our hands low through the zone, right down by the hips or even by the belly button, all right, we can get in a little bit of trouble because really there's only one and a half pitches that we can really hit. That's that pitch that's middle at best, right? And of course we can get to that lower pitch if we're already down there. But anything that's slightly elevated in the softball world, that's the rise ball. Obviously on the baseball side, we got that high fastball too. Okay, anything that's elevated, it's going to be really tough to hit it if our hands are coming in too low through the zone. So that's number one. Keep your hands high, right? And then have your barrel work through the zone the right way. The second thing that you can do, in addition to having our hands high through the zone, is making sure that we stay short to the ball. Okay, this is a critical one because I see a lot of hitters. I've gone to some high school ball games over the last few weeks or so, going and supporting my softball players who play on our travel ball team, and they've done it themselves a little bit, right? But also players that I'm watching and on the other teams and whatnot, and even on their teams, really long extension, right, on pitches that they don't really need to have that in, right? You don't really ever need to get long anyway. However, pitches that are middle in to us, how in the world are we going to hit that with any type of consistency if we're getting too long through the zone? So stay short to the ball, all right? And this is more than just, choking and poking on a 2-strike scenario, right? We can be short to the zone at any count, any point through the at bat, okay? Because what that's going to do is that's going to really, what I like to say, pack a punch, right? We can really get that knob out towards the pitcher immediately, right? When we're staying short to the zone, and then that barrel can follow from there, right? And we can, again, much like when I say we can manipulate that barrel to get to a high pitch or a low pitch by keep our hands high to the zone, we can do the exact same thing by staying short to the ball, right? Not getting too long, flying open too fast on the inside pitches, right? Not being overzealous rather on that outside pitch. Stay short to it, let the barrel work, and go from there. All right. The third thing, which is something that I harp on so much, and I loved, honestly, that I heard a legendary baseball player say this. All right. Because this is something I say all the time. And I'm always telling our players, okay, be balanced, right? Be balanced. Make sure that when you're in that box, okay, you feel comfortable, all right, about your stance. You feel comfortable about the weight transfer that you may have from the time you load to the time you're taking your hacks through the follow through and all that jazz, right? Are you balanced? Because whenever you're out of balance, okay, typically that's going to do a lot of things. All right, that's going to really adjust your eye levels, which is not good, right? It may have you off, off kilter a little bit as far as being way too out front or too far back on the backside, right? There's a lot of different things that not being balanced can mess up with your swing. So when you're balanced and when you're in sync and in tune and at the plate, you're in a good shape. So that's the third thing, right? 1, 2, and 3 here, real quick. Keep your hands to the zone, stay short to the ball, and be balanced. If you can master those three things, all right, about your swing, then you're gonna be you're gonna be a really, really good spot. And also, listen, it's not the end of the world if you're struggling with these three things either. Go into the lab, go into the batting cages, go with the field, whatever you got to do to make sure that you can work on those things as well. All right. And next episode, we're actually going to talk about, get a little bit more in depth on each of those as well. All right. The next thing that I really want to talk about, okay, I know some of you probably don't watch it, but I did get a chance to talk to a few of you guys. And the Little League World Series, guys, I love on the baseball side. I love watching it every single year, right? You've got, basically a bunch of 12-year-olds out here competing on national television. They're getting they're pulling MLB audiences as far as being able to be at the ballpark. I think we were watching the Florida versus Texas game, which was the Battle of the United States. The winner went on to play Chinese Taipei, and they had 29,000 fans in attendance, right? Not including the hundreds of thousands of us, maybe even millions, right, that were watching on live television on ESPN. So again, you got 12-year-olds, man, working their butts off on national television, and it was a lot of fun to watch. You really get to see their personality shine in different moments. You get to see the coaches shine in different moments. But I just want to talk about a couple of lessons that I learned just from watching the final two games of the Little League World Series. So, of course, the way that you have it set up, some of you who don't know it, right, you have the rest of the nations that make the Little League World Series. They all compete against each other in one bracket. Okay, so you had Chinese Taipei and Venezuela, I think, who duked it out in the semifinals on the international side. And then on the U.S. side, okay, you had Florida and Texas who were duking it out as well. So I watched the Florida and Texas game, and that was crazy, guys. It was Texas was up like 4-1, right? And honestly, you felt like they were about to run away with the game. This is like fourth or fifth inning at this time. They only play no, actually it was the fourth. They only play six, all right, in a little league, right? 6 innings. You got a few innings left. Texas is up by 3. Then Florida comes storming back. They go up 5-4. Texas responds. They go up 7-4. And I can't remember the hoopla that happened after that, but ultimately Florida ended up winning the game. All right. And it was a battle back and forth, right? Texas went through, I think, maybe 5 or 6 pitchers throughout this game, right? And I was saying on when I was watching the game with my family, I'm like, listen, if I'm Chinese Taipei, I'm now rooting for Texas to somehow figure this thing out because they were just going through those arms like it was like hotcakes, right? I mean, guys are getting hurt. They're having shoulder soreness. One kid from Florida hit a BB right back at the pitcher, hit the kid right on top of the leg. He ends up being okay, limping off. Actually ends up coming back into the game to hit later on, and I think ended up producing for his team, right? So kudos to that kid as well. But my point is that Texas was their pitching staff, man. They were going through it, right? Florida they weren't quitting. Texas wasn't quitting either, and you just had a really, really good battle, right? Then Florida ends up winning. They face Chinese Taipei, which, by the way, the Chinese Taipei team had been dominating the international side of things. I think they were averaging maybe 1 or 2 runs allowed per game. Defensively, they had a pitcher who was just mowing people down. Their offense was consistently good enough to beat any and everybody that they face. And so, honestly, watching the Florida Texas matchup, I'm like, if Florida wins against Chinese Taipei, I think it's going to be on heart alone, probably, right? And because I just felt like Chinese Taipei had all the tools in the bag to be able to get it done. And not that Chinese Taipei didn't have heart, right? But my point is that Florida would have to really take some serious gut punches to figure out how to get through Chinese Taipei. And lo and behold, they did. All right, lo and behold, they did. Shout out to the Chinese Taipei team again. But Florida, man, they absolutely gutted it out. They sent Chinese Taipei to an extra innings battle. and I think in the eighth actually, they 2 extra innings, and they walked it off. They walked it off, and it was just an incredible moment for the Florida team, sliding to home plate. Coach goes ballistic, and it was a wild time. But here's a lesson, honestly, that I feel like I learned. Right, you can never underestimate the heart of a champion, and that is throughout any sport known to man. Right, any area of competition that you can find yourself in, the heart of a champion, the heart of a lion, it can never be underestimated. Because at the end of the day, when you figure out, right, how to find an edge or so against a team and then exploit that edge, right, you can then figure out how to win the ball game. And what I felt like Florida did very well is that they just hung around. They did enough each and every inning to continue getting Chinese Taipei out of innings, right, and vice versa. Okay. And then when the moment came, Florida rose up to it and they got the job done. So I'm going to circle back around to that game specifically, though. And actually, I'm going to circle back around to that Florida coach because I want you guys to understand and learn a lesson and how I feel like he was a really good example as a coach as well. So we're going to take a very, very quick break here, guys, and we'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. So, as I mentioned before the break here, I wanted to come right back around to how I felt like that Florida coach of the Little League World Series was a phenomenal example. But before I get to him, all right, I want to just share. This is specifically for coaches, right? Every now and then, I'll kind of have a little soapbox moment for coaches because I think that we have we're in a position, honestly, to really make an impact on the lives of every ball player that we get a chance to contact with, right? Whether they're kids or college athletes, adults, whatever the case may be. When you're in the role of a coach, right, you have a serious platform and you have to be able to use it to the best of the abilities that you can use it. Okay. So, coaches, number one, our mission, our job, if you will, is to simply serve, right? I was talking to a parent earlier this week, and apparently I have a lot of love for him. I have a lot of trust for him. I know he'll do anything for me, and vice versa. I got a chance to coach one of his daughters quite a couple of years ago, and getting a chance to coach one of his daughters coming up this year, which I'm really excited about as well. But he and I were talking and just kind of bouncing ideas, and we were talking about the simple fact that a lot of times high school coaches, right, specifically in the softball world, because I know there's a lot of amazing coaches out there throughout softball, baseball, football, basketball, plenty of other sports who are doing the right thing by their players. But there are a lot, honestly, on the softball side of things who are not. And I cannot just express enough how disappointed I am year after year where softball coaches rather, are not going to bat for their players when it comes to helping them with college softball opportunities, right? Because here's the reality. There's over 1,500 college softball programs in the United States alone, right? And I know that that's a lot, right? But depending on how you look at it, you can say that's a lot or a little bit. But here's the reality. Okay, that's 1,500 opportunities. All right, for a ball player to find themselves on a college softball club, right? And not to mention, a lot of those ball clubs have 15, 20, 25 spots, right? Now again, you got a big pool of softball players, so I understand that it's not easy, right? I think only 6% go play at the next level, right? So it's not easy. However, it is easy, and it is very, very simple for a high school coach to pick up the phone, all right, a few dozen times, even a few hundred times, whatever, 1,000 times, whatever that number needs to be, to say, hey, listen, I've got a ball player that I feel like fits your program, right? Let's connect and let's figure out how to get them in front of you, and we go from there, right? That's a simple thing that we can do as coaches, and from a travel ball standpoint and a high school softball standpoint, we're not doing that enough. So coaches out there, if you're listening to this show, right, and if you are on the right side of things, shout out to you. But please help me implore other coaches out there who are not doing the right thing, okay, by their ball players, because there are plenty of young ladies out here, man, who have the talent, right? They have the skill set, they have the brains, right? They have it all, honestly, right? But they just simply don't have the platform, they don't have the opportunity because they're not in the right space, right? College coaches probably don't know about Podunk High School out there, or Podunk Travel Ball Team, or Mom Pa Shop, or whatever the case may be. So therefore, we have to do our job to give them the proper exposure, right? Do right by them. Okay. So that's a bad example, right, of coaching in terms of serving. But a good example, I feel like, back to that Florida coach for the Little League World Series. Okay, this guy, I think this was in the championship game against Chinese Taipei, right? And you can look it up on ESPN, or if you follow me on Facebook, I think I even posted it, right? But and he pointed back to their faith, right? And I did a little bit of digging and I did a little bit of research, and this is something that these kids and these families on this ball club all believe in, right? So they believe in their faith, they believe in God and that kind of thing. And even if you don't believe in God or believe in a faith, right? You have to give this coach credit because he relied on something that is the fabric or the foundation of their team in a moment where his guys needed it, right? To be able to say, hey, listen, God has already written our story. We've already won this game. We just have to go finish it. And I just felt like that was an incredible, and that was the gist of his speech, but that was an incredible moment for his guys. He had the guys huddled up in the dugout around him, right? They're about to go out for the next inning. And lo and behold, they come out and they do just that. They score another run. They end up walking the game off, and that was that, right? Now, again, some may say, well, that doesn't always work. Well, no, you're right, right? It doesn't always work out that way in a dramatic fashion standpoint. But what it does do, though, is that it puts that single ounce or mustard seed worth of empowerment and confidence, if you will, into those players so that they can go out and do what they feel like they can do. Because we don't know from the outside looking in or looking on the TV, like we don't know where their mental game was at that moment, right? We don't know what it was. But what we do know is that their coach recognized what was up with their players, right? He sees the opportunity to be able to give them the encouragement that they needed to be able to go out and battle for the team. So anyway, I felt like that was an amazing example of great coaching and him simply serving his team just like we serve a great God, right? And honestly, God serves us in a lot of ways as well. So again, all that to be said, I felt like that was an awesome opportunity for him, and kudos to the Florida coach for doing that. All right. So let me take this to a next step here because honestly, a lot of you are like, hey, man, when are you bringing back the open book segment? It comes and goes, blah, blah, blah. We don't really know when it's going to be here or whenever it's not. All right, listen, here's what I'll tell you. All right. Open book segment comes and goes because we have a lot of topics to cover. All right. And I try not to spend too much time, all right, on these shows week after week because I know some of you have short attention spans. I get it, right? But some of you are awesome about going back and watching the rest of the show. So I try to keep the show anywhere from 25 to 45 minutes or so. And because of that, I know that our open book segment can be a longer part if we needed to. But today it is here, all right? And I don't know when it will be back, but it is here today, and it might be here again next week or the week after. We'll see. All right, I'll try to do a better job here in season 5 of making sure the open book is here because I know you guys love to ask those questions, and honestly, I love answering them. So we're gonna kick it off with the first one here, and this is from Eric J. And Eric asks simply, "What is your MLB World Series pick?" And that's a good question. All right. Here's the thing, Eric. I'm gonna be honest with you, man. On the American League side, all right, as a diehard Red Sox fan, it really pains me to say this, but I truly believe that the Yankees are finally going to figure out a way to get back to the World Series. They had a hot start midway through the season before the All-Star break, then they went kind of cold. Right, the media outlets were trashing them a little bit, and they've righted the ship. Aaron Judge, oh my goodness, dude's on a tear right now in terms of the home run record. Right, so again, all that to say, I think the Yankees are going to figure out how to get it done. I think their bullpen is enough. And honestly, part of this pick is because I don't believe that there's anybody else in the American League right now that can go toe to toe with them in a 5 or 7 game series. And that's really the basis of it, right? I'm not giving any slight to the Yankees. I think they're good. I think they're as good as they've been in the past, to be honest with you. But I just think the rest of the field on the American League side doesn't have enough. Now, the two teams that I feel like could come in and you know, make some noise. Number one, the Baltimore Orioles, right? They play in the same division as the New York Yankees. They see each other 15, 20 plus times a year, right? They know each other very well. And who knows if it comes down to a final game, you never know. Baltimore could figure it out. So I don't know that Baltimore is as consistent as they were last year. So I can't. It's hard for me to pick them right now. The other team is a team that I say, hey, I try not to ever pick against, or I would never bet against them, are the Houston Astros, right? The Astros have truly been the standard as of late. I got a chance last week actually to go out to Houston and knock off the Astros as my 19th ballpark visited, and they were playing my freaking Red Sox that night. They walked it off on the Red Sox, but my Sox did end up winning the series in dramatic fashion, if I may. So I was cool with that. But either way, my point is, in a playoff setting, very, very difficult to bet against the Houston Astros. I would put them up right now. The run that they're on right now, I would put them up there with, the run that Tom Brady and the Patriots were on for a long time. The Los Angeles Lakers of old, the Golden State Warriors of the past few years, right? They are the standard right now. I wouldn't bet too much against them at all. But honestly, again, I think the Yankees get to the World Series. On the National League side, okay, I'll talk about my two sleeper teams first. And they're both in the National League East, actually, the Braves and the Phillies. Okay, now here's the thing about the Braves and the Phillies. Okay, the Braves right now, their health matters a lot. Okay, anybody's health matters a lot, honestly. But the Braves they've just been getting hit, man, just haymakers with just the injury bug, right? So I don't know where they're gonna be come playoff time. Truly, the Phillies on the other end, I think their bullpen has to be better, right? Their bullpen has to be better, and their pitching staff in general has to be enough to get them over the hump throughout a course of a series, right? When you're able to dial it in on a team for a week or a week and a half, right? And they don't have to focus on anything but you. I question if the Phillies can get that done. I think they could, and they have a shot. I just don't know if they're going to be better than the team I'm about to say, which are the Los Angeles Dodgers. Okay, I think the Dodgers have the fancy shiny car. They got all the bells and whistles. They got the offense. They got the defense, of course, right? They got the swag. They have the pitching. My goodness, they've definitely poured in the money into the team to be able to get the play. I mean, my gosh, guys, they have Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and Shohei Ohtani, who are literally, all three of them can be MVP picks at any given time on any given team, right? They're going they if they disperse from the Dodgers right now, the three of them, right, and one went to separate teams or whatever, they immediately make that team better, and they're immediately an MVP candidate, right? They're all there at the same time, right? They're sharing the spotlight out there in LA right now, and I just believe we're gonna finally get, which is kind of the classic, right, for baseball. We're gonna get a Dodgers versus Yankees World Series. I would love to see it. I would love to see both of those teams go toe to toe. As much as I do not like the Yankees as a Red Sox fan, I think they're good enough to do it. And on the flip side, I think the Dodgers are good enough to do it. And if you ask me, you force me right now to pick a team to win it all, I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Dodgers. So that is my answer, Eric, to my current World Series pick. We'll see where it goes. Hopefully it stands up and we'll go from there. All right. Or hopefully it doesn't. Maybe the Red Sox find a way in there. We'll see. All right. Next question. All right. Is from Larry H. And, Larry, before I share your question, man, I appreciate the way that you phrased this question, but I also appreciate the way that the dialogue that we had as well back and forth. So I just want to tell you that here live on the show. All right. So Larry says here, I have a player who is marginal at best. Do I need to keep or cut them? Right. And as I share it with you, Larry, but I'll share this with everybody else. Okay. When it comes to a player that is marginal on your team, whether it's travel ball, high school ball, what have you, you have to ask yourself, well, what's my team dynamic, right? What does my dynamic look like? Because sometimes, depending on that, right, you can't afford to have a marginal player on your team because it doesn't make sense right now to do that, right? On the other side of it, that player, it may not be advantageous for them to have them, right? For you to have them on your team. Okay. Here's what I mean by that. If you have a team full of studs, okay, depending on the mental aspect and obviously the physical aspect, you're saying that they're marginal at best, right? What is the advantage for them being on your team? You have to ask yourself that question, right? And if there are enough advantages to them being there, then I'll say go for it, right? Keep them on the team, right? Because I am a firm believer, right, in pouring into people, right, and making sure that we do enough to help them elevate their games, right. And so I'm always typically leaning on keep them, right, keep them, and then figure out how to make it work, right? But again, if you got to cut somebody, you got to cut them because at the end of the day, if it's not good for your team, if it's not good for them, then that's not a great environment to be in. Now, I say if you cut them, all right, try to do right by them by helping find them another travel ball team. Obviously, on the high school softball side of things, that's more of a bummer. Hopefully, there's at least a JV program that they could be a part of. But if not, at least the least you could do it as a high school softball coach is say, hey, listen, here's what I'm looking for, all right, in a ball player in terms of skill set. Here's where you are right now. Here's some areas that you can go and improve. Okay, go do that, and we'll catch you next year. All right. Same thing on the travel ball side, though. I think you can do that as well. If you're going to cut somebody, if you can't help find them another travel ball team, at least leave them, leave them headed out the door of tryouts, knowing that hey, listen, here's where I need to improve, here's where I can grow, and we'll maybe try to see you next summer, next fall, whatever. Okay. So again, Larry, great question, man. I can spend all day on that one. The third and final one here is from Brett W. And this is a player, I assume, and he says, "How often should I email a coach?" All right. So if you're talking about a college coach, I assume, right? I think you should email them as often as you feel like it. Okay. Now that's a loaded answer. Okay, because my specific answer to that is you should email them enough until they see it. Right? Should you email them every day? If they haven't responded, why not? Right? Why not have them see the name Brett W at the top of their email list every single day until they finally open one and respond to you? Right? Now, some of them, there are rules in NCAA wise, right? Depending on, your age and what grade you may be in at that time, they may not be able to email you back, right? Until the summer of your junior year or what have you. Okay. But just understand that emailing a coach is a good thing, but if you're going to email them, provide substance. Okay? So here's some things that you can put into that email. Maybe it's video footage of you, a skills video, right? Maybe it's live game footage. Maybe it's a copy of your upcoming schedule for the next few weeks, right? Maybe it's an invite to a very specific tournament that you're playing in or a game, in school ball right now, right? Whatever that may be, okay? But give them something. Give them something of substance so that it's worth them opening up the email and taking the time to read it, right? Should you give them this long scroll of a book type email? Absolutely not, right? Nobody wants to read all that, okay? But give them something, a couple of sentences, right? Grammatically correct, I hope, right, Brett? So give them that. Give them some video. Give them something to watch, something to chew on there, and say, maybe it's worth going to see this guy, right? Maybe it's worth, going out there at 1 o'clock this Saturday to watch him play whoever on field 4, right? You want those details in there if you're going to send an invite. Okay. I'll spend some more time on that here in the coming months as well, because I know that's a topic that everybody likes to come back to. And that's one that I believe in my heart of hearts that if you do it right and you do it well and you do it often enough, you can honestly, okay, hear me out. You can honestly get yourself to the next level without the help of anybody. So if you are one of those ones, Brett, that has a coach who may not be helping you out, all right, call me, all right, but get with somebody, right, that is going to help you out, so that you don't have to feel like you got to do it on your own. But again, guys, if you're a player out there right now and you're in that boat where you're not getting the help you need, if you do the emails right and you do the phone calls right, you can put yourself in a great spot all on your lonesome. So anyway, I'll leave you guys with that. We are at the end of our show, which is crazy because shows typically aren't this short. But we're at the end of our show, which means that we're at one of my favorite parts of the show, and I like to call this the thought you should know moment. So if you are new and this is the very first episode that you're ever watching, okay, thank you for joining. I hope you've gotten some value thus far. But our thought you should know moment, guys, is something that I've seen, I've read, I've heard over the past week or so that I feel like you should know. All right. And today, this is a quote from Ed Latimer. Okay. And Ed Latimer says here, embarrassment is the cost of entry. If you aren't willing to look like a foolish beginner, you'll never look like a graceful master. And guys, when I hear that quote, all I hear right there, all right, in its simplest form, is just start. And I've said this before. Just start. Whatever it is. If you're starting a new business, if you're starting a new hobby, if you're starting a new sport, if you're starting some new training, whatever the case may be, just start. It may be a little embarrassing at the beginning, and that's okay. Right? Especially when it comes to our sport. Softball and baseball, man, it's one of the hardest sports out there. Right? To hit a round ball, round bat, it's a tough thing to do. I get it. Right? But just start. There's so many people out there who can be amazing ball players, right? There's so many people out there who can, be amazing football, basketball, track stars, whatever the case may be. Whatever your field of sport, just start. So I'm wrapping this show up with that, guys. I'm wrapping this show up now like we always do. So please, let every single thing you do be done in love. Because at the end of the day, that is truly what makes this world go round. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.